Hello all my wonderful Coldplay friends out there. We have a lot of things to discuss in this video, especially about the recent news surrounding Coldplay breaking up in 2025. Just kidding, that's not actually happening. But we do have a lot of rumors to talk about and dispelling some false rumors, so definitely stick around to the very end. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to say that I'm going to be covering Coldplay content from here till many years forward. So if you're interested in any of this, definitely subscribe, and it helps me out a ton, so it's greatly appreciated. Now, let's start off with, some of these things. Like, I've seen so many article titles that say ridiculous things, and I just wanted to say, please read past the title. When you see an article, please click on it and not just share it on Twitter saying, why is this happening? Because I've seen things like Coldplay's not making music after 2025, or Coldplay's retiring after 2025, or that they're not touring after 2025, and it's just been insane. So let's start with the source and why this year is so important. A recent interview done with Joe Wiley of BBC Radio 2, Chris Martin said this: "Well, I know I can tell you our last proper record will come out in 2025, and after that, I think we will only tour. Maybe we'll do some collaborative things, but the Coldplay catalog, as it were, finishes then." So again, the important things to take out of that are that the last proper record will come out in 2025, and that they're probably only touring after that. So a big question is, will they make more full-length albums after 2025? And for me, that's a big no. It sounds like they're not going to be making any of these huge albums after that year. And this really lines up with a lot of the news that we've been hearing, especially the news about there only being 12 albums. We've heard this a lot, several interviews, and it was confirmed even by Phil Harvey. So Music of the Spheres, which was just released not too long ago, was the 9th album. So that means that there's going to be a 10th, 11th, and 12th album. 3 albums left in Coldplay's catalog. So 2025 is coming up. We have 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. That's 4 years to release 3 albums. So that's a lot of content coming out in the next few years. So Coldplay has a ton of work to do in the next few years, but also this channel has a lot to talk about in the next few years. So again, if you haven't subscribed yet, definitely do so if you're interested in hearing all of that crazy news to come packed in these next few years. It's insane. So now let's talk about what these albums will be, because we have a pretty clear map of what is to come, and this is kind of still speculative, but from everything we've heard in interviews and everything that the signs are pointing to, this is what it seems like it's going to be. So we just had Music of the Spheres Volume 1. Speculated that there's going to be 3 parts to Music of the Spheres. So Album 10 could be Music of the Spheres 2, or whatever it's called. Album 11 could be Music of the Spheres 3, or whatever it's called. And then the final album, which we do know is going to be titled Coldplay. It's going to be a self-titled album for their final album, which is really cool because I feel like a lot of artists, when they first release an album, the first album is a self-titled album. So the fact that they're doing it for their final album is pretty cool. But what I wanted to talk about, and something that I kind of discussed before in a video here, if you want to check it out, is what we saw in that catalog from, what was that, Everyday Life. The catalog, that image that pointed us to the first time we ever saw Music of the Spheres. It also, on that car, said FFTF 2024. And a lot of us speculated maybe 2024 is finale for the fans, the last album, right? But with this recent news, it seems like the last album is going to be on 2025. So with this conflicting information. Obviously, I believe that the last album is going to be in 2025 now. So what can we make of FFTF 2024? It's possible that their timeline has been altered a little bit, and they expected to have the last album in 2024, but with, you know, the pandemic and everything, things got pushed back a little bit, and now it's in 2025. That's possible why we're seeing this conflicting information. Or perhaps the final album of the Music of the Spheres set. You know, I said there's a 3-part album, possibly. Maybe that final album comes out in 2024. That's possible too. So let's talk about, now that we're kind of thinking about this, let's talk about a potential future timeline that we see in Coldplay. So 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. That's like what we have left of Coldplay. So with these years, what do we expect to see? 2022, I expect mostly to be just touring. Coldplay has dates all the way, I believe, until the end of August. So that does not leave a lot of room for them to release music. I know they released an album in October this year, but honestly, with all the publicity and all the prep work and all the hype that they set up for all their albums, I really don't think they're going to squeeze that in 2022. It's possible that we do still get a single or some more information regarding the next album, but personally, I think that's a lot to ask from Coldplay for them to tour, come back, and then straight go into the next thing. I think it makes a lot of sense that this tour, you know, is a really big tour from their last huge album, Music of the Spheres, and then that's it. It's just 2022 is the tour, you know, seeing the fans and everything. Then I think it's really realistic to think that in 2023 is the next album, Music of the Spheres 2 or whatever it's going to be called. Then in 2024 we see Music of the Spheres 3, then or whatever it's going to be called. And then finally in 2025, like it's been mentioned, we're going to see the self-titled album Coldplay in that year. So it also was said that that would likely come out in Christmas or around Christmas time, so probably in December, maybe early December, so that people can order it for Christmas. But I think that's pretty realistic to think about. But then, you know, what happens after that? I think, you know, from that quote that we just saw, Chris said that they still want to do collabs. And something that they've just been really adamant about is making their tour really eco-friendly. And I think they've been doing an amazing job of trying to be as conscious as possible about that. And I remember seeing in a recent interview that Chris was like, okay, we're at 50% of what we want to be. So it sounds like they're still striving to make this possible. And I think they're doing incredible things that not only are for Coldplay, but are for other artists to model. I think it's super inspiring to see how they're trying to save the world and trying to just change the world for the better just from their tour ethics. And it's just amazing. And it's really interesting because obviously with all they're doing with like flying and cars and, you know, like it's impossible right now to have that 100% eco-friendly, and they realize that. But it's really cool to see that they're striving to make that perfect. So I think the future of Coldplay after 2025 will involve them just trying to make that 100% clean, which is really cool. But the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about, and I've mentioned so many times before because this has come up a bunch in the last few months, is they're not going to stop making music after 2025. I know it says that this is their, what did I say in that quote? Their last proper album. But they're not going to stop making music. Honestly, like, it's a lot to expect a songwriter like Chris Martin or just the band to stop making music. And as a songwriter myself, you know, I've mentioned this before, I couldn't imagine not writing every day. I couldn't imagine not having that inspiration. You know, as the years go on, you get more sentimental and you get more involved in wanting to make music. So I cannot see Coldplay just completely stopping writing music. But you may be thinking, well, they said this is their last proper album. Yeah, it's their last proper album. It's their last full album. They could still make EPs. They could still make singles. I really don't think this is the end of Coldplay music. So if you're worried about that, I wouldn't. And if there's one thing we've learned about Coldplay, it's that, yeah, they plan things out in advance, but they're also good about still wanting to do things, right? So I don't see this being the end of Coldplay music at all. And plus, they still said they still want to do collabs, so that's definitely a good sign, showing that they're interested in still writing. But what else did I want to mention? Oh yeah, I wanted to mention this quote too, because I saw this and I was like, yeah, this makes perfect sense. Chris also said, "We're going to make 12 albums because it's a lot to pour everything out into making them. I love it and it's amazing, but it's very intense too." If you think about Music of the Spheres, this album was insane. They did so much for it. They performed so many different times. They, you know, went to so many different locations. They had a huge collab. They had several collaborations on this album, and it was insane. I've said this 100 times before, but this seemed like it was bigger than ever. And it makes sense that Coldplay just doesn't want to do that anymore. It's a lot of work. And they've been around for so long. I think they're starting to realize that, yeah, they're honestly the biggest band in the world. Where do you go from there? I think they're focusing more now on the fans. They're focusing on just living life, because life is for living, and they just want to have fun touring, collaborating with people, and just living life to the fullest, which makes a ton of sense for Coldplay because they already have the biggest fan base in the world and are the biggest band in the world, so it just makes a lot of sense to me. And not to mention what I said about there being Coldplay potentially just releasing singles. Like, honestly, the industry is going to that anyway. Like, singles are almost more important than albums now. And if you don't have to go into all the work of making a huge album and just release singles, I mean, it's easier and possibly even better for the band too. So personally, it makes a lot of sense to me that they're going in this direction. Now, I wanted to end with some final notes here. We have a very busy, I don't know if you can hear my dog, but she seems to be barking at something. But anyway, my final notes are that we have a very busy next few years going on. 3 albums in 4 years. So I know it's a little bittersweet, but I also just wanted to remind you to stay positive. Coldplay message is all about love and being positive. This is not the end of Coldplay. And that I'm really glad that they told us this. I wouldn't want it to be like, oh, after their last album, they're like, oh yeah, by the way, this was our last album. I'm really glad that they gave us 4 years to prepare, saying 2025, that's gonna be the last big album. Okay. I, took a few days to think about it and reflect on it, and now I understand. I get it. I totally understand where Coldplay's going with it. So I really respect them for letting us know. So that's really cool. All right, that is everything that I wanted to mention in this video, but if you're stuck around to the very end, that means that you appreciate my videos and I appreciate you. So if you like this content, definitely subscribe for more. Like I said, there's lots to come, so definitely expect more of this Coldplay content. But thank you again so very much for watching. If you have any comments, definitely leave them below, what your thoughts are on the next few albums, what to expect, how you're feeling. If you're really sad about this, if you're excited that there's going to be 3 albums coming really soon, I'm really excited about that fact. But definitely comment below. But thank you again, very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.